Well, guys, last week you saw us attempt to empty the freezers, and this week we're going to show you what we managed to make with it all. So the first thing we're going to focus on today is the lamb breakfast sausages. Now, we do have a video coming for that, so make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss it when it comes out. With these lamb sausages, I had a couple packs of ground pork. So we're actually mixing meats, even though my usual recipe would only be for just lamb. We've got 2 pounds of pork in each of these buckets, plus we're halving all that lamb that we took out. So we're gonna make this in 2 separate batches. But first thing we need to do is get our spices mixed up and all the meat in here. That was cinnamon that I just put in there. That's one of the things that I think is essential when you're making lamb sausages or venison sausages. Cinnamon really does make it. So at this point, I have, some of it's still a little bit frosty. Hopefully it'll be all right. So at this point, I've split my pork between the 2 bowls. I'll just hold it up here so you can see. And we're now just going to add in our lamb. The cats know that I've got meat. This one, I'm breaking it up a little bit because it is still pretty frozen in the middle. And basically now, all that's left is to mix it all up and get your hands dirty. Well, I have to admit, I was very surprised at what 15 pounds of ground meat can end up creating. It was a little bit of a process, but we ended up with 15 packs of 8. This is how we package our, hang on there. Oh, I just ripped it. Damn it. So that's how we package them up in 8 for us for breakfast with the kids or whatever. And then we ended up with 2. Each one of those is probably a pound, maybe a little bit. No, I bet you it's around a pound of meat in containers because we're going to have breakfast sausages for tomorrow for breakfast. And I'm going to keep 1 container to do some pizza with the ground sausage meat on top because we all love that. But still, 15 meals, 8 sausages in each one. So that's 120 breakfast sausages. So that's not too shabby if I do say so myself. Anyways, the next step in this process is to get these into the freezer so that they all freeze in their little piles. And then we're going to package them up for a little bit more long-term storage. Not that these last very long, but stay tuned because tomorrow we're going to get on to the next thing. And now it is time to work on our cat food. So day 1 was the sausages. Day 2 is going to be the cat food. Now, basically what this process is taking everything, running it through our grinder, and then basically mixing it all together. At this point right now, I do have some squash steaming on the stove. That's something that we do add to our cat food. Sometimes we add rice too. I'm choosing not to at this point because I don't want to bulk this out more because space is at a premium. Now I know I'm going to get probably some comments on the fact that you could can this food. And yes, we do have canned cat food as well. A lot of our lamb meat, things like that we can. But sometimes we do like it to be sort of a bit of a raw diet. And there is no way to can, obviously, a raw diet. But I'm not going to bore you with too much of the details. We're just going to get this process all finished up and see how many containers, we use little sour cream containers, that we have to go back into the freezer because, as you know, all this has to go back into the freezer, so we got to find some room for that. So I have to say, I really don't think we're making a big dent on getting stuff out of the freezer, but at least it's getting organized, which does make me quite happy. Now, I think this week we're going to be tackling more than just the 3 items that I had taken out stuff for, but I didn't want to jump ahead too far and have too much out because I hate feeling that pressure of, okay, now I've got to keep going, got to get this done. And this is nice because we've got the sausages done. They're already in the freezer. We're going to do the cat food, which is a big job. And then we're going to slice up those roasts for the jerky because that needs to marinate for 24 hours before we can dry it. Nice thing about the jerky is it's not going back in the freezer. And I have a feeling when it is all finished up and we taste test it before the end of this video, we'll be probably taking out more roasts to make some more. Well, there you have it. 28 pounds, 28 containers that now need to find a home in the freezer, but that's awesome. That's roughly a month kind of supply. I know that seems crazy, but we have 6 cats that eat this, and one of these containers will replace 1 meal for the day. So they get a meal of kibble and a meal of the cat food. All right, so before we can get the cat food in here, which I know is going to be kind of tricky, It's time to bag these up. They've been overnight and are nicely frozen. So we're just going to be putting them into large Ziploc bags, which we reuse. So this is a perfect thing to use them for because it doesn't really matter if they've got holes or anything in them because these aren't going to last long. So I'm not really worried about freezer burning. On to our next dilemma. We've made our cat food. We've made our sausages. And my freezer is back to looking like a disaster. Oh my goodness. But that's okay because this cat food's going to get fed pretty quick. And I know the sausages aren't going to last long either. But I think we've got some more stuff we need to take out of here to make any progress on this freezer challenge. Next step, we're going to take those 2 roasts that we took out and make some jerky. I'm very, very excited for this because this is something we haven't done before. This is not a tried and true recipe. This is my first time doing it, and I'm really excited by the end of the video to do a taste test because that'll determine whether we're going to be making a lot more of this product. So as I'd mentioned before, I'm doing 1 loin roast and 1 leg roast to see. This here's the loin roast. Isn't that beautiful? We're going to definitely cut off all this kind of fatty part. We don't want that in our jerky, but this is some gorgeous meat in here, and this is boneless. So we should get a lot of jerky just out of this 1 piece of meat, which is pretty awesome. Oh, and the cats know I'm cutting food, cutting meat. As soon as I get out my fillet knife and sharpen it, they are like here. Now, quite often this just kind of peels off. Yep. Beautiful. So we're going to just set that aside. That's probably going to become cat food. Although I'd be curious to slice it and see if we could make bacon out of it because it kind of looks like bacon. That might be something to try. Again, like I say, these are loins. These are what would usually be like your rack of lamb. Oh, I'm not sure if you can hear my cats purring. They're down here just a-begging. I think loin meat, kitties, is a little bit too good for you guys. Here, let's see if I can get them. Hey, Tilf. So we ended up getting about 1.5 pounds, not quite, out of just the loin, which is actually not too bad once you consider all the fat and parts that you took off that, weren't great for jerky. So 1.5 pounds. Now we get 4 of those roasts per sheep, as well as 4 of the big leg roasts. So 1.5 pounds from the loin. I'm curious to see what we get off the leg now and kind of see, well, give us an idea of how much of this meat we could potentially get from 1 sheep, which I think is kind of interesting. The one thing I'm going to say is I'm pretty sure that loin meat is going to be the mwah when it comes to making beef jerky. It's not beef jerky, but I keep calling it beef jerky. But you know what I mean. Lamb jerky. It's going to be the pièce de résistance, right? Isn't that what they say? But that is also right there, a full rack of lamb. So before I get into cutting the leg roast up, I'm going to mix up my marinade because I think I should just get the loin meat right into the sauce and then I can stir it around as I add the leg meat in. So basically the sauce is super simple according to this website. 1/3 cup soy sauce. I'm reading off my cheat sheet. 1/3 cup soy sauce, 3 tablespoons Worcestershire sauce, 1.5 teaspoons onion powder, 1 teaspoon garlic powder, 1 tablespoon of dried oregano, and 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. So we're going to get that made up. I'm mixing it in my little ice cream container here because then I can put the lid on and shake it around every now and then because it needs to marinate in this for 24 hours. And basically once that happens, we'll bring you back and it's going to be time to dehydrate and then tasting. I'm super excited for tasting, I have to admit. Well, I'm stirring in this loin meat. And hopefully there's enough marinade. I might have to make more. I don't know. Anyways, we'll get the leg meat cut up and kind of go from there. Because like I said, this was supposed to be for 2 to 3 pounds. And I have almost 2 pounds just with that. All right, guys. Well, we've got it all chopped up, all put away. It was about 3.5 pounds in the end. 3 3/4 once the sauce was all on top. So I'm really curious as to how much lamb jerky this is going to make. But we have to wait until we can process it. So 24 hours now it needs to marinate in the fridge. I think I'm going to keep stirring it every now and then because it definitely seems like some pieces got covered more in the marinade than others. So we will definitely turn it every couple hours. But that's it for now. We'll see what else we can get up to out of the freezer. So now we're going through the freezer upstairs because I can't find the bones that I was hoping to find easily on the top of the pile. So we're now probably 3/4 of the way down and we're finally getting somewhere. But mostly we've just been pulling stuff out and throwing it everywhere. So as you can see, we have managed to get down to some sheep. As I had mentioned, I knew there was a couple sheep still in this freezer upstairs. And here is what I'm talking about. Look at the bones we are storing. But that's not all of them. Hang on. Hold with me. Hold with me. So that was 3 packs of bones. And that has to be 6 packs of bones. All taking up valuable, valuable real estate. But those weren't the packs I was looking for. The little pack that I knew was somewhere in this freezer is what I was after. So now I have 2 packs of bones out. We're going to let these defrost, then we're going to roast them, and we're going to make some broth. But since I still have 9 more packs of bones, I think broth is going to be a big ticket item for the next few days. All right, so we have roasted our goodies and got everything in for this broth except for the spices and the water. Now, when you roast your bones, make sure that you scrape everything out of that pan. You're going to see in this pot here, there is the fat and all that good juicy stuff because you want that in the broth when you are cooking it for this like 6 to 8 hours. You're still going to let that set and take it off because you don't want that in your jars, but it is wonderful, wonderful flavor for your broth. So we've got in here our bones, carrots, onions, celery, and then we've got some spices which we're going to put in. We have bay leaf, thyme, and rosemary. And we're so lucky because we still have thyme out in the garden and the rosemary is still growing in the porch. We've managed to keep it alive for 2 years now. Hashtag we can grow rosemary, right? I say that because it was a challenge for us for a while. For a couple years, it didn't matter what we did. We could not keep our rosemary going all year. But this is year 2 for this plant, so that's pretty awesome. But anyways, we're going to get 8 liters of water in here. The one thing that I have done is I have removed another 3 packs of bones this time instead of 2 because I forgot that I had this huge, huge pot that I'd managed to steal from the cottage, a good old canning pot. And this will hold a lot of broth. So, I mean, 8 liters is not even going to half fill it. So I've got another pack out, our 3 packs out, and we're going to make another round after we can this up. Probably not till tomorrow because of the length of time it has to cook. But super pleased because boy, did it make a dent in the freezer. And I've also used the celery that we'd froze in the freezer. It wasn't nice enough for human consumption fresh, but it works great for broths and things like that where you're going to be taking it out anyways and feeding it to the chickens. So without any further ado, we're going to get our water and spices in this pot and get it simmering. We need 6 to 8 hours, and then overnight we're going to let it cool after we've strained it so that we can take all that fat off in the morning, and then we'll be jarring it up. And there's our first batch, which we got 8 jars. And that was out of 2 bags of bones. So things are looking good. Well, our meat has marinated and it is time to get this jerky onto the dehydrator and get going and see how it tastes. I'm super excited for this because I really, really hope this is going to give us an excellent way to use up some of those roasts, and hopefully it produces a lot. I know dehydrating means things shrink down, but I'm really hoping that we'll see some decent results from this. So without any further waiting, let's get it on the dehydrator. Some pieces definitely ended up cut a little bit thick, so I'm curious as to whether we're going to be able to actually do this in the 6 hours that the recipe says to dehydrate it for. Here's another piece, like if you see that, that is awfully thick. So I have a feeling we're going to have to run it a little bit longer. And there we go. So now we're just going to get that onto the dehydrator. 145 is the temperature we're going to set it at, and check it in about 6 hours. All right, so it has been about 8.5 hours since we put the jerky into the dehydrator, and I think it's finally ready. Now, one thing I will say as a note is I should have done the trick of freezing it and then slicing it because I could have sliced them a lot thinner. I think that this probably took longer than what the recipe called for, because of the fact that some of the pieces were a bit thick. I haven't actually gone through the whole dehydrator yet to see if some of them still need to go a little bit longer, but I have another round that I still have to do, so that's not a big deal anyways. Well, the second round of jerky's all finished up. In total, both groups, both batches, I guess you could say, were in the dehydrator for a little over 8 hours. I went with almost 9 hours on the first round, and I thought it was a little bit on the crunchy side. So the second round, I did a little bit less, and I think it is perfect. So thumbs up on that. So as I'm weighing what came off the second rack, I'm going to just say, we had a chance last night to Google what it costs for organic jerky, and I am floored at what we managed to produce value-wise out of these 2 lamb roasts. And of course, I couldn't even find lamb jerky online, so I'm going with an organic beef jerky. But I am so thrilled with this, and I'm curious, when we get this all weighed up, how much we got in the end. So in the end, the 2 roasts produced us 525 grams of beef, I keep saying beef jerky, lamb jerky. And that's awesome. That's basically 10 packets of organic, natural lamb jerky. You know what's really funny is it was actually hard to find natural jerky for humans. If you wanted it for pet food, it was everywhere, but I was trying to find human grade. But anyways, I digress. That is over $85 worth of jerky in that bag. And it took no effort whatsoever. Unfortunately, I do think it's going to disappear very quickly. So, without any further ado, we're going to taste test. Chris and I are going to tell you what we think of our first time making lamb jerky.
My hair looks all right.
You look fantastic. Super excited.
All right, let's try this.
Moment of truth. It's pretty good.
That marinade has a good flavor too. I think it does anyways.
I don't mind it. I'd be curious to try some other ones. Like, when it comes to beef jerky, my favorite is probably teriyaki, so I'm very curious to keep trying some different ones, but
The best part is we can do that.
for the first time, this is pretty awesome. Stay tuned, because maybe we'll do a video just on beef jerky in the future, but not until we're experts at it.
And not with beef, but lamb.
Right, lamb jerky. I'll get it right eventually. Well, we are Christmas Eve day, and I have finally managed to get 21 jars of broth all finished up and ready to go in the pantry. That's 5 packs of bones used out of the freezer. Plus, we even removed the turkey that I'd mentioned. So we're not doing too bad on space, but we're going to end it there for this week because it's Christmas and we've got a whole lot of other stuff to get sorted out. But we're going to come back next week and keep going on those freezers.